You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for a successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And for people who have been on my website or have been exposed to Dental Business Mastery, they will be very aware of Ameena Basile. And Ameena is like me. She started off as a dental assistant, went through the normal auxiliary path, receptionist, patient coordinator, practice manager, and has been a dental consultant for a number of years as well. We connected up a few years ago and we developed the company Dental Business Mastery together. And Dental Business Mastery put on events for dental team members to come on board, and where we share our insights and strategies and get a whole other host of other dental experts in their field to share all of the secrets to running a successful dental practice. And it's my pleasure, for the first time, hopefully of many, many appearances, that Ameena joins me today. Welcome, Ameena.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks for having me today.
That is my pleasure. For people who are not aware of you, can you just give us a very quick history of who Ameena is?
So I've been working in healthcare for more than 25 years. Can't even think to do the maths right now. And I come from a healthcare background in my personal life, family members working in healthcare and father a GP and things like that. But my passion for practice management, I guess, came from seeing these doctors and dentists professionally and in my personal life that were really good at their clinical stuff, but really not very good at running businesses. You know, they just hadn't had the training and the knowledge, and in turn worked really, really hard and weren't very profitable and really weren't living the lifestyle that they worked so hard for. So I later studied accounting and moved into practice consulting.
Magnificent. And how long have you and I known each other for?
5 years.
5 years? Nice. It's been a lovely journey so far, Meanie. Let's hope it continues on.
It has. It's always a pleasure working with you, Julie.
Oh, you're glorious. Likewise. So this is the first time of many times. You're going to be a regular contributor on this podcast, which I am totally thrilled about. And what we thought we might focus on today is scheduling. We'll just talk about kind of whatever comes up with our clients. And at the moment, scheduling seems to be something top of mind for you guys, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm finding it's always a pain point for dental practices. And I guess the things that they discuss with me is that we may or may not have a templated appointment book for various reasons. What are the reasons that we do that and make for a more balanced day in terms of being labour intensive for the clinicians? It also manages the stary and the staff much better. It then allows people to have a lunch break. It tries to eliminate the need for patients to be waiting because clinicians are running late. So there's many, many reasons why we template the appointment book, and we try to work on scheduling a balanced day to make everything run smoothly. I find some of the front office staff don't quite understand from the clinicians or clinical staff's point of view what's happening for them in the back end. Their focus, they're just sort of task orientated rather than outcomes orientated, and they're just thinking I've got to keep a full book and pop patients in wherever there's a gap, but not really thinking about how it's all going to play out. And are we going to be able to give a really good service and look after everybody and keep everybody sane and balanced whilst we go about all of this? There's lots of issues and pain around scheduling, and I guess our job is, how do we fix these issues for these people?
Yeah, that's it. And I think there are a couple of the beliefs out there that, yes, a full book means that we're doing our very best and we're reaching all of our remuneration goals. And it's just is quite often it's not the case. And there is such a different experience to be the practitioner doing the dentistry, the nurse or the assistant assisting and then doing the steri, and the receptionist themselves fielding all the emergency phone calls and trying to put people in at a time that suits them. There are 3 different needs in each of those areas, and there needs to be some kind of communication and agreements amongst those 3 entities to make sure you end up with an appointment book that is efficient, productive, and stress-free. And I think the stress-free element is sometimes the thing that gets missed by the receptionist because they are simply not in the clinical areas doing the clinical stuff.
Yeah, this is why there's so many facets of dental practice management that it's so hard to really explain to people what we do and how we can be a benefit. And I sometimes get dentists reach out to me and wanting help in one specific area with one small problem. And I open up this whole can of worms and they're like, but I just want to deal with this one thing. Just talk to my dentist and get them sorted. But scheduling, for example, every team member needs to be involved to make this work well.
I agree. You bring up something in my mind. So when I was talking to Charles once years ago about fielding that question that you and I both get often. Sometimes we'll get a dentist ring up, a dental practice owner ring up and say, what can you do for me? And Charles brought about this obvious analogy, which I'm amazed that I missed it, but, brain doesn't always work. And that analogy is, it's like a patient turning up and saying to the dentist, what can you do for me? I mean, the dentist is going to say, well, let's have a look at where you are, and then I can find out what the issues are, and then I will provide you with options for solutions for those issues. And so it's much the same way. And what you just said then, Ameena, was it's like a patient coming in and saying, I just want a cleaning. And then they open up their mouth and they've got rampant decay, perio issues, missing teeth, broken down fillings. But I just want the clean.
I love it. It's a perfect analogy. In my world, and I'm sure in yours, Julie, because we'll work together a lot, is that we do need a comprehensive consultation, and often this one little area they think they've got will open up so many other things that are not working, and you can't sort of fix one without the other. It's like putting an implant and a crown on a mouthful of perio.
That's right. Each area does impact each other, just like a dental practice does, as well. You said before, opening up a can of worms. It's a manageable can of worms because we don't do everything all at once. We're managing one area at a time, just like the dentists do with their patients' oral conditions as well. Okay, so Manny, so when you go into a dental situation, can you describe to me what is a good appointment book and what's a bad appointment book?
Well, a good appointment book is reasonably booked for a good period of time. It's balanced in terms of procedures, production, and the amount of labour it requires to look after everybody. And it's also balanced to keep the patients happy and on time, and that we can offer a really good service. A bad appointment book is empty.
That is great.
Or just full of stuff, but unmanaged stuff that's hard for everybody to get around, and that's going to cause all the headaches.
And one of the biggest headaches, would you agree, is squeezing in the emergency patients?
Yes.
When there's no time.
Yeah.
And that's that's a lovely example too of the maybe lack of awareness that reception and clinical have for each other. And so it just creates a bit of animosity. It's got the potential to cause quite a stressful situation. And so the area that the receptionist doesn't understand fully from the clinical perspective is the breakdown of the room and the reset up of the room, the amount of time it takes to diagnose and then discuss with the patient what's going on for them to then actually get a little bit of treatment done so they are out of trouble. That takes an amount of time. And so squeezing somebody in just for a script doesn't play out in clinical time as well as it does in the receptionist's mind in the appointment book itself. And the bit that the clinical team don't understand for the receptionist in the receptionist space is you've got someone desperately in need for a dental appointment time. They're a regular patient. We need to see them. I need to put them somewhere. So I have to put them in in between these couple of patients. And so there's needs on both sides that needs to be communicated. And if they're not communicated well, it does have the potential to cause some animosity there.
I think also, like, a lot of dental receptionists usually come from the clinic at some point. They were a DA. However, usually front desk in a dental practice is the person working in that role is constantly distracted. They're juggling 101 things. Yes, they should know better because they've worked down there, and it's assumption and it's a thought process about they should know better. They were a DA. They know how it affects us down there. But they become so busy and involved in their front desk that they just end up becoming task orientated on filling that book and so forth, and they forget. And this is why we're forever revisiting and coming back to basics in a business. It's because we all need to be reminded, from time to time about managing these things that we probably knew and used to do well quite some time ago. We've moved on from that, and things can sort of fall off the wagon or get lost.
I agree. It's been my experience that younger dental practices, when they first open their doors, they need every bum on every clinical seat just to pay the bills. And so you squeeze in emergencies, you see anybody, and you just you need to get that flow of patients through to be a viable business. But then as you evolve and grow and start getting strong bookings in your book, the requirement for you to fill every single gap with anything reduces. But we have already set in place that belief, that process, that habit, and it doesn't adjust. And so then we just overload the clinical team members. And some of the drawbacks around overloading the clinical team is what you said before. It's the patient experience that gets negatively impacted. Both the people that have been booked in for weeks or days or weeks, and they're all of a sudden having their appointment time shortened, or they've got a rush dentist trying to get through their treatment, or on the other side of the emergency, they're now waiting 5-10 minutes because now that room is running late. But also the patient that's been squeezed in, they feel rushed. They're not properly educated around what's going on for them in their mouth, and they're rushed into decisions of what to book in for the next appointment time, whether it be extraction or root canal or large filling or crown. They haven't been given the amount of time and explanation that's required for them to be able to provide informed consent and be satisfied they've got all the information. And so all the patients around a squished appointment book, their experience is compromised. And when you start to really develop the belief and the value in your dental practice that we cannot compromise patient experience, because that is what makes us long-term viable practices. That is why patients will refer friends and family, because we provide them consistently strong experiences. And so when you really hold that patient experience up very high on your list of values, all of a sudden there's a ripple effect over the other systems that you build into your practice.
Yeah. And, Julie, when I'm doing appointment book scheduling, I always start with the clinicians. And we start with, what do you love doing in dentistry? What do you not like doing as much in dentistry? And then, are you a morning person or an afternoon person? Which part of the day do you function at your best? And so we put the template together surrounding that, so that the stuff, if they're a morning person, we'll give them the most challenging things to do in the morning, and then in the afternoon when they're getting tired, the easier stuff, or vice versa. And if they're having a balanced day, a day of dentistry is going to be far more enjoyable coping that way, and that'll just flow on to the rest of the team. Obviously we need to work around some other factors, lunch break, staffing, accommodating emergencies, where would we run late, all that sort of thing. But I think working around the clinicians' passions and energy levels and the way they like to work, that flow-on effect goes through everybody, and it just seems to work so nicely.
I agree. And the pre-scheduling or the pre-blocking, what's the term? I use the term pre-scheduling. What do you use?
Templating.
Templating. So for the practices out there that aren't aware of templating, can you explain the templating process?
So as I've just discussed, we consider all these factors to make a productive, good day for everybody, and then just fit out or template your appointment book using your dental software into these blocks. And then we also need to, usually the blocks consist of different colours for different procedures and so forth. And then we need to train the team how this templating works. Because usually in the first instances, they're like, oh, but I've got a patient here and then I've got all these gaps until next week if I keep using this template as is. They need to know how to manage that and how to use some common sense surrounding it.
Because if it's too rigid, then all of a sudden you've got patients coming in at times that aren't actually ideal for them, and you run the risk of increasing your broken appointment time numbers because by the time the day comes, they're like, what did I book this appointment for this time for? There's no way I could have done that.
Yeah, it can't be rigid, and you have to have some flexibility, and that's why I guess some people deter from it from that reason. It looks it's too hard to manage. It takes a little bit of training in the early days, but I find it highly beneficial down the track.
It certainly is. And one of the great starting points is, as you said, Meena, is let's find out what treatments that each of the practitioners really enjoy doing. Let's also bring in another piece of data to the mix, and that is how much the practice must turn over in order to remain viable, in order to cover all the expenses for the coming year. And then determine, and you can do this by generating reports in your dental software of if one dentist loves root canals, for example, how many root canals did we do last year? Find out how many 415s you did last year, and that will let you know what the demand for root canals is in your practice. Do the same for oral surgery and Invisalign and your recalls as well. How many new patients came in every month? These are all things that you need to allocate enough time for. Otherwise, you'll be having a schedule that it's going to be 4 weeks until your next new patient slot is available, and many new patients won't necessarily wait that long. And we also, because that's another thing that we need to do as well, we need to put aside enough spare times that for the patients that require something a little bit more urgently, or for the new patients coming through, that there is time for them to be seen. Because one of the reasons why patients leave a practice that they're really happy with and go somewhere else is they were just too busy and couldn't fit me in anymore. And so there's a great analogy that many people who talk about appointment book management use, and it's the rocks, pebbles, sand analogy. And if you can imagine your schedule is a big vase, a big glass vase. And what normally happens is that we pre-schedule all of our 6 monthly recalls in the system. It's the 6 monthly recalls that get booked 6 months ahead of time. They get all the prime spots, the late evenings, the Saturdays, the 8:30 in the morning slots. They get all those beautiful time slots, and they all get first dibs on the appointment book. And so that's like putting sand in this glass vase. And then as we get closer to the time, then all the pebbles start going in, the root canals, the filling appointment times, they all get put in. So appointment times that maybe last 1 hour, 1.5 hours go into the appointment schedule. And then the big stuff, the crown work, the aesthetic work, the big orthodontic cases, all the larger stuff that actually has a large financial value to the practice that you've already determined we need to fit this many of the rocks, that big stuff, into our schedule, there's no more room left anymore. It's already been filled up with the sand and the pebbles. However, if you start off with an empty vase, you put the rocks in first, and then around the rocks you put the pebbles, and then you pour the sand in, that's when you can actually fit everything into your schedule. And the pathway to doing that is to allocate, pre-block, template your appointment book to cater for all of these things. And I always say, only fill up 75% of your book, because 25% of your book needs to be allocated as free time that anything can go in there, because we need to address the immediate needs for patients moving through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and one of the other things I've found with templating appointment books is clinicians who have a goal. For example, they want to start doing more crown and bridge. They're not doing much of it. or they have a new procedure they want to start promoting or doing more of in the practice. So, for example, it could be they're getting more into TMJ consults or TMJ splints, for example. By saying, okay, I want to be doing, let's say, 5 of these a week to get the ball rolling. So we template your book with these 5 spots of these procedures, because if we don't, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks go by and they haven't done any of them. This new procedure has not been, they come back from a conference, they're all excited, and it just goes to the wayside and they never start doing this type of treatment. So if they actually block out the appointment book with those spots, it's so amazing. I'd meet at a huddle. I used to do it with one dentist all the time. I would meet at a huddle and I would say to him, we allocated 5 spots for the week to do these procedures. You've got 4 spots left. So you've only filled 1 because it's week 1. So we're doing okay. We've put 1 in. Week 2, I would say to him, you filled 2, you've got 3 that you haven't filled. He would at least fill another 1 or 2, only because it's the front of mind. And then when he's seeing the patients, because it's front of mind, he's thinking more and more, who else has this problem? It's amazing, the psychology.
It's been my experience too, that the minute you focus your thoughts around something, it's not like you're creating something out of nothing. It's not like saying, I'm going to say this patient needs to have a crown done even though they don't need one. It's not a matter of that. It's just it's that whole thing where the planets align and there you go, right in front of you. There it is.
Absolutely. I think
that whole team awareness and focus on something is enormously impactful, and you need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, and I think the other real benefit, there's so many benefits, could talk about this forever, but is the new patient exams. I think allowing ample time for them, doing very comprehensive exams with photos, intraoral photos, all those sorts of things, and really taking your time with that. Like, every time I implement this for somebody who's been doing short exams and then they convert to templating the book and doing new patients, usually first thing in the morning and one after lunch, so you're never late for them. The last person that I've done this with, just in 2 months, her treatment planning value has doubled. And I said, is there anything else that you think you're doing differently? And she said, no, I think it's just having the time.
And isn't it so much that whole working smarter instead of harder?
Yeah.
You can get through a day with a couple of 15-minute gaps or more and have a more productive financial day and happier, stress-free environment than if you were just seeing patients back to back all the way through.
And then talking about opening a can of worms, that then leads to, everybody thinks they need 50 million new patients, to keep the practice ticking along and make money. But if we're actually servicing our client base that we have comprehensively, the need for that becomes less.
That's right. And every consultant will say there's thousands and thousands of dollars left within your walls. They're already patients of yours. They already are impressed with the way you manage them. There's millions of dollars of that. So tackle that rather than continually looking outside for new blood coming in.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the impact of a morning huddle and the schedule is profound. I mean, morning huddles are something that you and I would both be encouraging practices to do every single morning. And even if you've tried it in the past and it hasn't worked or every team member's been on board, just persist with it. Because here are a few benefits that I see with the morning huddle that can really impact the schedule. Number 1, if you've got a full day, and your emergency times that you've pre-booked are already taken, then ask that question in the morning huddle. If I get an emergency today calling up, says the receptionist, where would you like me to book them in? Gaining an agreement with the clinical team, this is the place that we've allocated for you to be able to put an emergency patient, gets rid of any chance of animosity. The receptionist can relax. She's got that space to put somebody in. The clinical team, when that person gets added into the schedule, they're not getting upset about it because they're the ones that gave permission to put the patient in there. So I think that's a beautiful question to ask in the mornings at the morning huddle. Another very good question is ask the question, what went well yesterday? What didn't go well yesterday? We want to ask what went well yesterday because we want to always be reinforcing the good stuff, reward that stuff that we want repeated. But the what didn't go well can be a lovely little opportunity to quickly mention, or when you put that emergency patient in straight before lunch at men's, we didn't have lunch because after steri and room breakdown and reset up again, I only had 10 minutes for lunch. And so it allows that very short period of time to quickly mention something that can help both sides modify slightly what they do, consistently tweak it over time so they get a truer understanding on the impact each side, front desk, back office, have on each other. And the third thing that I think it really does help with the morning huddle is, what are we focusing on today? And what you were talking about, Meenie, we've got another 2 new patient slots to fill. We've got another couple of TMJ assessments to fill. We've got a productive rock to fill next Tuesday. Let's all focus our energies on that next big thing.
Yeah, and so many things that can be discussed, at that point. And I also find, that last minute where the clinician goes, oh, my wife told me I've got to be out by 5:30 on time tonight because I've got to pick the kids up from such and such, or at lunchtime, I really need to call my bank manager or my accountant, so they know that they've got something really important to be at and, to try and really pull it together to make sure these things happen so they can support each other, And
I think that with dental practice schedules, they can just kind of happen by accident, but It'll be such an enjoyable day if you put the planning in behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even from a comprehensive point of view, particularly if you've got a hygienist, that communication between the dentist and the hygienist about what they're going to do with their patients or what they're going to discuss, all certain needs and all those sorts of things, just having that few minutes just to have a quick heads up about everything can make the day go so much smoother for everybody.
For sure. Another element to creating a very well-managed schedule, Ameena, is managing broken appointment times. And so one of the things that many practices do, they have their cancellation list. And on that cancellation list are people that urgently need to get in sooner. What I tend to suggest is broaden that list out and just have anybody who is available to come in sooner on that list. The easiest way to do it, of course, with our dental management software programs that we've got at the moment is, shift the status of that particular appointment time so there's a different color appearing, so you don't have to write down this long list of patients on a piece of paper that you're sticking to the front desk. But you can just very quickly, the minute someone drops out of that schedule, you can quickly scan through looking for the colors and bring people in forward. And when you're booking these appointment times, the minute you're booking somebody longer than a week away for their ongoing treatment, mention to them, if anything sooner comes up, I'll give you a call. It's an added service that you're offering, and it gives you a long list of opportunities to fill a gap in should one appear at short notice.
Absolutely.
So the one thought that I'm going to leave everyone with is something that you mentioned through this, Meenie, and that is just the value of spending more time with your new patient examinations or your comprehensive examinations, giving yourself time to discuss with patients what their oral condition is, what the ramifications are if they got nothing addressed, and all the different options they have for as solutions for that. That builds your appointment book moving forward, yes?
Yeah, that's right, Julia. I think the other key takeaway from this is your practice can run smoothly and a balanced, enjoyable day of dentistry each and every day if things are managed properly and the systems are in place and the staff are trained.
Right. And just starts, just trigger the discussion. Have your next staff meeting as spending half an hour, everyone having a frank discussion around what the needs and requirements are for that appointment book in order for it to build up efficiency, productivity in a stress-free environment, and get the input of everyone, because everyone has their own needs and desires around that appointment book. And let's get on the same page and develop some agreements around it.
Yeah. And enjoy your days in dentistry, everybody.
They can be enjoyable. Thank you so much, Meena. Now, so if anybody wants to contact Ameena so she can come in and sprinkle her brilliant fairy dust around and make everything so much more wonderful and productive and delightful, how can they contact you? I'll have everything in the show notes, but how can they contact you?
By mobile phone, 0416 313 118, or ameena@dentalmanagementexpertise.com.au.
Beautiful. And hopefully once we've had a couple of events that we've had to cancel under Dental Business Mastery because of the COVID lockdowns. And so once all that's alleviated, you'll see a bit more activity from us in a more one-on-one way. And we're trying to develop something online that's going to be very engaging, compelling, and of high value to the dental community as well. So keep your eyes out for all of that.
I think something else we should just mention is that Julie and I do some coaching together through Dental Business Mastery. So for anybody that's interested in having both of us, that is available.
2 heads are better than one, as they say.
Absolutely.
Magnificent, Ameena. Well, I look forward to chatting with you next time you appear on this podcast, where we can cover another key element of dental practice success for our market out there.
I always enjoy talking with you, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, lovely. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, you should join the club. The club members receive an online lunch and learn every week where I share insights, systems and strategies to improve the success of your practice. These lunch and learns could not be easier. They are recording so you can watch them at a time that suit you. Members also have full access to the library of all of our past topics. The price is just $199 per month, and it is a powerful and effective way to upskill your team. I hope to see you there.